Hey YouTube, Electric Adventures here with a quick response video to SteveBenway's Friday Talkie, where he was talking about media formats and the good and the bad and what his favourite was and everything like that. I tend to agree with most of his bad. I mean, you have obviously the modern... Sorry, I had pops ready. Obviously you have your CD media and the terrible cases they put them in. I mean, the idea was right. They don't take up much space. You get a bit of colour and manual and everything like that. But the silly hinges they put on these things just make them impossible, you know, to get and to ship. And the discs themselves, they store a lot, yes, a lot of things, but you have loading times, and they are so easily scratched. I mean, especially for us people who are buying them second hand. And then you have, you know, Nintendo's original cartridges where they had a nice label on the top label, but why they needed to be this size, considering the you know, the Famicom, you know, the actual game ROM takes up a small section in here, and some of these cartridges actually have a Famicom converter and then the game ROM on top. I just don't understand. It was a really weird decision at the time to make these cartridges so big, but at least they put the end label on, a thing they seem to have completely and utterly forgotten about for their other systems. I mean, you've got, you know, the SNES, no top label. Nintendo 64, no top label. Like the cartridge format, but no top labels. And what is it with Nintendo systems and the cartridges not working properly? You seem to have to constantly clean them, whereas the Sega systems don't have anywhere near as many problems. That's both the Master System, the Mega Drive, and the Game Gear, and other systems. I mean, look, they could do it right back in the day. This is MSX 1983. We have top label, reasonable size cartridge, slots, no slot protector or anything like that, but they don't seem to have problems working. But even, you know, Atari did it the same thing back in the day for some of theirs. So there's an Atari 8-bit original one, and on the top they have left cartridge. So once again, they don't stack too well. And they originally came in absolutely ginormous boxes, which they then shrunk down to the more general A4 size. And that's another thing with the packaging, you know. NES cartridges do actually come in quite nice looking boxes, but they are cardboard boxes and they don't last. You know, I'm lucky that this one is in as good a condition it is, but even as it is, it's tatty. You know, Sega went for the VHS style cases, so you've got the, you know, the Master System and the Mega Drive are very similar. They have an inlay which is easy to think. I mean, of course the plastic can get ripped. Usually this hanging tag gets ripped off and things like that, but in general they have survived a lot better. And the cartridges, well, they've got that, and they don't have a top label either, which is annoying, so they don't stack well in drawers and things like that. And, you know, in general, if you're playing the games, you can't keep them in the cases all the time. In most of the case, most people will keep them in, you know, tidies and carries, so not a lot of them thought that out. Now, your magnetic media, of course, when the computers came along, retailers had more shelf space, so you ended up having boxes this size, but at the end of the day, what they were delivering to you was a floppy disk. Now, Steve was talking about how Amiga disks and don't seem to last as long as the other disks. Now, I have MSX disks that are 720K, and they all work fine from the era. What Amiga did at the time, I mean, it was innovative, and it was mainly due to the size of their, you know, the operating system is really good and really fancy, but it's also quite big. And by the time on a boot disk you put the operating system on a 720K disk, there wasn't a lot of room left, so they extended the format, and in most cases, you know, could fit 800K on a disk. And how they did that was by using the outer tracks of the disk, which were there as a protection buffer. But over time, it's those outer tracks that are going to fail. Also, the floppy disk drives, that Commodore chose to put in the Amiga, weren't actually very good quality ones back in the day. The machine was already very expensive, and the one thing they chose to not put much money into was the brand and the quality of the floppy drive. Also, a really good feature of the operating system is it knows when it puts a disk in, just like the Macintosh did, by constantly checking and reading the disk, which means it's spinning all the time. And the disks wear out more, so leaving a disk in an Amiga for a long period of time is not a good idea. Now the Atari ST, yes, does have disk failures, but the disks don't fail anywhere near as much. The ones on my Atari ST that don't work as well, my old disks where they did the same thing as the Amiga, where they packed more information on the disk and went past the 720k limit. But my disks from the MSX, which is older still, that either only were single-sided 360Ks or 720s, have lasted longer. But I also will say I too like the good old cassette format. They're small, they get a message across. Yes, I have one of these too for some odd reason. And they work for quite a period of time, but unfortunately you get slow loading times, and they definitely don't want to go near a magnet unless they do stretch. So just like videotapes, the first time you play a videotape is the best it'll ever be. So on the second play it is already degraded. So all these forms, evolution as they've tried to get more space and things like that. And then we've got the various solid state storage. So you've got, I don't have examples of every one, so here's a Sega Game Gear one. Quite a nice cartridge. I like this size because you can see them, you're not going to lose them. Down to the DS, and this I had to hunt through my girls' ones to get one of these. Now these are great as far as the DS is concerned, but they're still too small. My kids lose them all the time. And why do they have a loose thing inside them? Why do they have to have a loose thing inside them at all? But anyway, but it's the right idea, solid state. I mean, you had, Sega had a bit of a go with the cards, but they were a bit expensive to make back then, and at the time they couldn't fit as much on them, so they needed larger ROMs, and the cartridges were cheaper to produce, so they went with those. But I think the Japanese had it right with their ones. I mean, the CD size case, and this is a normal CD case, I hardly ever get broken ones of these for the PC Engine, because hinge size is smaller and everything like that. There's less to crush. You can still put a thin manual in there, and they have a little ridge to help hold up the structure, the card, and a little plastic protector to keep the card clean. So the best of all worlds there. And they could fit a bit more on these than the Sega could, because they had larger chips and produced them in larger quantities for the Japan market, so it made them cheaper, and they stuck with them. I mean, they did come out with a CD version of the system later, but this was the right track. So what I'd really like to see the console makers do is go forward with something about this size. Now the Vita ones have large storage in them, but why did they make them so small? I don't have a Vita, sorry, I haven't bought one. I'll pop up a picture if I can find one. They're worse than the DS ones as far as size is concerned. It'd be so easy to drop one of those and it fall underneath the couch or whatever, or just drop one when you wouldn't be able to find the blinking thing. Now as far as cartridge formats are concerned, Atari had the design right with the 2600s as well, and these are with the original ones. They thought ahead. They had a protector here to protect the actual cartridge, so they generally don't get dirty, and things so you can't try and put the cartridge in the wrong way. They have a title on the end so that you can find the cartridge, and they stack really well. They did come in cardboard boxes, although in Australia we were lucky to get plastic clamshells at one stage. So, big long ramble by Electric Adventures there, but just thought it was an interesting subject and I posted a response. Alright, catch you all later, and keep watching Steve.